Welcome to Penn Sports Podcast, episode 4, Woo Bay. We're glad to have everybody with us and following us on Twitter at Penn Sports Pod. I really appreciate that, and we've got a great program for you today. What do you think?
Great shows right now. We have Coach Decker from the Poquoson wrestling squad, and we have head coach Shanda Bailey of the girls basketball team over in Crabberland.
Well, you know, you talk about Coach Decker and both, in fact, Coach Bailey as well. Both teams headed to the state tournament. We had a good state competition or region competition this week in swimming.
Yeah, 5A Minchfield boys and girls both won that swimming competition, and Jamestown won the 4A division, boys and girls. So it was a clean sweep for both of those teams.
Well, speaking of clean sweeps, we're fortunate to get the Poquoson wrestling coach with us today, Eric Decker. Coach Decker, good to have you with us this afternoon.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Well, last week we had read an article in the Daily Press about the success of your program in this year. Tell the fans a little bit about how well the Poquoson wrestlers did at the Region 2 tournament.
Well, the wrestlers did about as good as they could do. We qualified 13 out of 14 weights. We had, I believe, 12 in the finals. Of those 12, 10 of those ended up taking first place, putting all of them in very good positions within the bracket for the state tournament this weekend. But that was kind of to our expectation, I want to say. They've had a really good year all year long. So we have a really, really tough team. By far the toughest team I know I've ever been a part of coaching-wise, but I think it's probably the toughest team Poquoson's had in a number of years, a long time. So it's very special.
Well, it is special, and do you happen to know if that's historic? 10 region titles out of 14 weight classes?
I know for Poquoson it is. I'm not sure in terms of record state-wise. I know for the Poquoson High School, we qualified more than has ever been qualified for the state tournament. I know we had more region champs in any one year than they've ever had in any other prior year. So in terms of that, it's absolutely historic in terms of Poquoson wrestling, which carries a lot of history with it. So that's certainly saying something.
Well, speaking of history, Coach, we know of the Poquoson's history in wrestling. What about your history at Poquoson High School?
My history at Poquoson High School, let's see. So when I graduated from Old Dominion, or I should say when I finished my eligibility at Old Dominion, I still had one more year of school left. And I started helping a friend of mine, an old teammate, actually an old competitor of mine, who was coaching PWA at the time. And I helped him coach that first year and got in with the then Poquoson head coach. And once I really learned all about the town of Poquoson, the small town that it is, and how involved their community is in wrestling, I remember I lived actually outside Old Dominion at the time. I went back home to my now wife, and I said, we got to live in this town. We got to move here. We're buying a house in this town. And I bet you it was within 12 months I bought my first house in the small city of Poquoson. And ever since then, a couple years after that, I became head coach. We brought on a lot of good people, a lot of great wrestlers, a lot of just great individuals. We got a lot of moving pieces, but we've had a lot of success over the past, I want to say 5-6 years. We've put a lot of kids at the top of the podium for sure, but nothing that's ever quite mounted and been quite so successful as this year is, and hopefully will be, capping it off next week with a state title, we hope. So.
Well, Coach, I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't familiar with Poquoson wrestling until a young man, which I'm sure you know very well, Jason Bryant, introduced me to it. So talk about him and some of the alums that have helped with the program after they've left.
Well, like I said, it's Poquoson is such a unique town. I believe there's 3 or 4 National Hall of Fame members that actually live in the city of Poquoson. Jason Bryan is someone who wrestled for Poquoson, and he runs Nat Talk online. He's very involved with wrestling. He calls the Olympics. You drop the name Jason Bryan, and everybody knows who it is. He's a Poquoson alumni that's very much a big supporter of ours. He also helps run the Virginia Duels wrestling tournament. Someone we have on staff who's a very well-known name within the area as well as the city of Poquoson is Mike McCormick. Wrestled for Poquoson when he was in high school and won 3 state championships. He's actually he's a NCAA official. He just refereed the Penn State-Iowa match last night. I'm not sure if anybody caught that, but it was a great one. He's a member of the National Hall of Fame. He's on our staff as well. Both of his kids wrestle with us. John Benny Graham, one of the founders of the Virginia Duels. He has one of his grandkids right now, grandson's wrestling for us on the team, Colton Hicks, at 170 pounds. He's in the National Hall of Fame. So we have a lot of guys, or a lot of individuals, a lot of people that have been around the sport for a long time and have done a lot of great things for the sport of wrestling, and they're still actively very much involved within our wrestling community right now. So that's a very good thing for our sport, for our kids here in Poquoson. It's definitely special. It's very special.
Well, that sure is a lot of familiar-sounding names, and of course, it must be nice to coach in a community and wrestle in a high school that has that kind of history.
Yeah, I think it's in some ways, some people I think maybe feel that it puts a lot of pressure on our kids, but at the end of the day, it's just that much more in terms of opportunities for them. They have a lot of support, a lot of backing. They have a lot of great people to learn from the absolute best. Mike McCormick is obviously being so heavily involved with Division I wrestling. Every year we get some very, very top names that come in and run a clinic for us before season starts. So our kids get the opportunity to learn from the best. And we always incorporate that stuff throughout the whole course of our season. And it makes it very special for them. May put a little pressure on them at times to try to keep carrying the high level of expectation that is Poquoson wrestling, but at least this team right now is taking it in stride and having fun with it, and that's the important part, I think. So,
Coach, you mentioned the Virginia Duels earlier. Talk about how much competition and how much help that brings to your kids to face different opponents from all over the country and state.
Yeah, Virginia Duels is a very special event. I remember competing in it in college. I know I wasn't too fond of it, but when I was coming up through, I had a couple tough losses there myself. But it's just such a unique atmosphere to be able to put some of the best high school teams, not only in the state but also in the country, on a mat. And right next to them is Virginia Tech wrestling Arizona State at the same time. It creates a really neat atmosphere for the kids. They get to watch college wrestling up close in person all weekend. And obviously the level of competition is it's extremely tough. This year we were in the American division because we won the black and blue the year prior, beating Grundy in the semis and then Smithfield. This year we actually ended up wrestling 3 teams out of New Jersey, beating the first 2 in the quarters and then the semis before falling to Camden Catholic, a private school up in New Jersey, in the finals. Lost by about 12 points, I believe. So it was a very good weekend. It's very tough, but that kind of competition really just sets us apart in terms of how tough our regular season schedule is to help prepare our guys and our wrestlers for the postseason. So.
And Coach, one more question for me. Talk about ODU's wrestling program. They've progressed a lot since. I was a student there. They were just getting their feet, wet with the program. They have new facilities. Have you had a chance to follow them a little bit?
Yeah. Of course, I stay on top of them. Go watch them when I can. It's been sparing the last few years, but Coach Steve Martin has been there for a number of years, and I know personally when I was looking to transfer out of Virginia Tech to go someplace, I remember wrestling one of his guys, and he actually just called everything out that I was thinking I was going to do before I did it. So I know when I was looking to transfer, I was like, I want to go wrestle for a guy that puts that much into his athletes. And they've had some very good years of late. The last few years they've had a number of All-Americans, one of which just transferred to Michigan, unfortunately. So I think they're in a little bit of a rebuild mode. Right now they got a lot of young guys. Their team is very young, though, so I'm sure that they're going to be knocking at the rankings here before too long. But it's very important in the wrestling community as a whole to have such strong programs in the state of Virginia, between Virginia Tech, UVA, and Old Dominion. It's especially Old Dominion being right here. So, they're doing good. I think they're young. I think Coach Steve Martin will have them up competing at the highest level before too long. you're always going to have some swings and some minor ups and downs, but it's very important that we have that.
Well, Coach, you headed out
community here. So.
Well, Coach, you're headed out to Salem this week for the state tournament, and you talk about the competition you face throughout the year. You're going to face some pretty good competition this weekend. What do you expect out of your team?
Well, I expect them. We, as a coaching staff, we always try to make sure our expectations are in line with what we're capable of. And I think the moral of it is we want them to compete to the best of their capabilities. And for some of them, that might be a top 3. For some of them, it's going to be a state championship. And if everybody does what they're capable of doing, there's no question that we should walk away with a state championship. So that is our expectation. We're a little bit handicapped, if you will. Our 106, Trevor Wiggins, had an outstanding year for us this year, and he actually unfortunately broke his hand right before the region tournament. They had to have surgery this week. So we'll be down one wrestler. One of the 13 is now down to 12, unfortunately, which makes it that much more of a challenge. The added adversity makes it more of a challenge to accomplish our team goal, but certainly not impossible. So, we have high expectations, but they seem to answer the call every time we do, So they've won countless tournaments this year. We won the Big Orange by 122 points. Then we went to the Ram Rumble this year, actually. It has about 33 teams in it out in Lafayette High School this year, in which case it had the 5A returning state runner-ups, had the returning 4A state championship team there. We ended up winning that tournament by almost 80 points as a team. So just to put into perspective how strong we are and how good this team really is this year, it's very special.
Well, Coach, we certainly wish you well on your travels and on the tournament, and look forward to seeing great results out of Salem this weekend.
Well, hopefully we're able to do that and bring it back home. So it's been quite a while. So we look forward to it, and thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Coach.
Well, it's great to hear from Coach Decker over at Poquoson. What a success they're having, and let's hope, Wube, that the Penn Sports Podcast gives them the luck that some of our former guests have enjoyed the past couple of weeks. One of our first guests, Coach Bobby Woolham at Lafayette, his boys basketball team wins the Bay Rivers District just this weekend. And our guest just last week, Jason Clark, the head coach of TAB girls basketball team, they go 18-0 in the Bay Rivers District, 20-1 overall, and they're headed to the state title.
I think we're a good luck charm. I mean, and then with Coach Decker, they might win some more championships this weekend. So, great things going on the peninsula, most notably the Bay Rivers District.
Well, maybe our logo should be PSP with a little green clover, one of those maybe a 4-leaf clover.
4-leaf clover, there you go.
We'll add an exclamation point in the 4th leaf. So, but we got another coach that we're going to visit with now who is taking her team towards the state title.
Former player with the Hampton Crabbers. She played for Coach Six, who's now at Hampton University, so she's getting a lot of knowledge from him. She was a classmate of Eric Brown, who was the boys' coach. So, Coach Shanda Bailey's the head girls coach, and she's doing a great job over there on Crabberland. Head coach Shanda Bailey. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great. Now, Coach, I look at you on the sidelines, and I wonder, are you going to put a uniform on and get in there? As much as you're moving on that sideline, you look like you want to jump in there and play.
Most games I do. I joke with the kids all the time that if I were playing, we'd be undefeated. Of course, all of them can beat me because my knees just don't hang in there anymore. But I tell them that all the time.
Well, speaking of your playing days, you play for a great coach who's now at Hampton University, Coach David Six. What have you learned? What did you learn from him, as a player and now as a coach? I know you guys talk quite often.
Everything. I think, my style kind of emulates him. An animated coach. I try to be tough, like Six was with us. Try to be kind of friendly with the kids from time to time. You have to have good relationships with your players in order to get results from them. So I try to do that as well. But I talk to him all the time as far as, strategy is concerned. And if he, looks at the game the same way I'm looking at it, I try to pick his brain, Six, what would you do in this situation? And just to see if I'm on the right track. So I still go to him for approval quite often. Him and Eric Brown, our boys coach as well.
Well, Coach, we got to see you Tuesday night this past week in action over at Phoebus High School. You dropped one to Phoebus. Both Wube and I noticed that the shooting fell off a little bit in the second half. I'm sure that's something you must have addressed because you got a good win earlier this weekend.
Definitely. We did a good job defensively. We held Diamond to, I think, 23 points, which was great. But Jalen Mickey, one of our shooters, is out sick. And, with 3 shooters in the game, one of them is normally always on. We just couldn't generate the offense that we normally are able to generate. And I hesitated a lot with putting Maya on Diamond. Even though she's our best defender, Maya is our best on-the-ball defender and our best off-the-ball defender. And, tying her up on that defensive end, I think took away some, what we do on offense. She is great at starting the break. So we weren't able to get into, our rhythm offensively in the second half. That hurt us quite a bit that game.
Well, we liked what we saw, especially in the first half. The triangle and 2 was a surprise, but I think a really good defensive style. In fact, Diamond Johnson took herself just to the hash mark and stood there and kind of tried to see if her team could win it 4-on-3. You were winning that competition, and then all of a sudden she breaks loose. And in particular on offense or defensive rebounds by Phoebus, they kicked it out quickly to her, and that's when she's the most trouble.
And what really I think our girls got they got a little excited. They saw that the defense was working. I preached to them all year. Just understand that, all year we practiced to beat Diamond and Princess Anne. That's it. Those are the 2 teams not to look past anybody else in the district. But, most of those games, we be competitive in those games, but we have to stop her and you have to find a way to stay in the game against Princess Anne. So, I was a bit disappointed in the second quarter because we started picking her up in the full court, and that's not what you want to do. You can't play her in the open floor. You have got to get back, pick her up around the hash mark, in her own front court. Once she was able to break free, she scored quite a bit in that second quarter. And, then we were our own Achilles in the second half when we couldn't put the ball through the basket. But she did have a little breakout time there. She is a phenomenal basketball player. I gave her a bunch of hugs after the game, wish her the best. You kind of hate to see her go, but glad to see her go at the same time. She is a great kid. So,
well, we're going to address that here in a minute. But the one thing I would think that your team could take away, despite the loss, is the level of aggression that she plays with. She is always moving forward, and hopefully that was seen by your players as they move in the playoffs to see that you got to stay aggressive in this game.
Definitely. And, we've seen Diamond play maybe about, at least 5 or 6 times this entire season. And the way she plays against us is, if you can just imagine, she's still scoring 30 points, when she's playing a team like Bethel. But the way she plays against us and the way she plays against them is totally different. She's out to beat us every single time. I love that about her. And you're right, you're absolutely right. In the locker room, I tell my girls that all the time. She never lets up. Never lets up. Like, from the time the ball is jumped until the final whistle, she never lets up. And that is the type of tenacity you have to have on both ends of the floor, especially going into the playoffs.
Well, Coach, that was my next question. How much of her departure will, take away from some of the competition? I mean, she brought the best out of everyone, including your squad.
Definitely.
So how much do you think of her departure will hurt the competition in the district?
I think it will. Hopefully there's some kids that are up and coming that are competitive. We'll always be competitive. Let me say that the district will always compete against one another, but to have that sort of excitement and that caliber of player who just makes you play your best every single night. You know, it's for me. You know, I was sad to see her go, but I did tell her I wished her well. Wished her nothing but the best. It's hard for Diamond to, you know, day in and day out. You know, she's a young kid. She's still in the 10th grade, and for her body to take that type of, you know, seeing boxing ones or triangle and twos, and you know, constantly have to perform like that on both ends of the floor. That's hard for a kid to keep up. So, you know, I'm happy for her. I'm looking forward to hearing great things about her from our new school. But I think as far as our district is concerned, you know, it does kind of water it down some. Like I said, we'll see what's up and coming next year. You know, I think every team does have a couple of players, or at least one player that you kind of have to look out for. But that level of competition, it's been a long time in this district since we've seen it. You know, I was a freshman when Keisha Fred was graduating, and I haven't seen it since Keisha Fred. And I don't know why Phoebus always gets the dominating players like that, but, you know, Phoebus had her as well, so go figure.
Yeah, they had Nikki Reed, had a couple great players there. And I said the same
They
thing.
did.
Keisha Fred is the bar for me. You know, everybody was trying to compare Diamond to Keisha Fred, but that's a hard person to compare yourself to. But speaking of young players, you have a lot of young players. I was really impressed with Candace Johnson. And again, Bethel has a young player. So this district will be fine. And speaking of which, you're playing for a district championship. If you can beat Gloucester later on in this week, you'll get a chance to play Woodside for the championship. You know, talk about. I read where you're going to see what happens. Your girls are going to be ready to play. Talk about the chance to play for a championship.
The girls are excited. I don't think anyone is more excited than I am. It has been, you know, hard work for us to get here, a long time coming. They're really excited about the opportunity. The one thing, they're young, especially, you know, Candace and CC, and, you know, I have a couple of 11th graders. So for them, you know, all this is new. You know, Candace transferred from Kickotan, so it's really new for them. And having the opportunity to go to regional play, my seniors, they played with Michaela, who's over at Hampton now, and Dee Dee, who's over at Temple. So, you know, they've seen, you know, what it's like to win. But for them to now be in a position where, you know, they get to win the district outright. We won the tournament last year, but, you know, I'm not sure where we were in the district. I think we might have been tied for first with Nasma River, or maybe we finished in second. You know, I don't even remember because of the way they did the districts. But for this year, for them to have the opportunity to win it outright, you know, that just speaks to their hard work, their dedication. We faced a lot of challenges this year. The girls are excited. The coaches are excited. I've advised them, you know, not to look past Tuesday's game at all. Gloucester is not the same team that they once were. The coach over there, Amy, is doing a great job with those young ladies. They come out and they play hard. And if you saw, they beat Phoebus, even without Diamond. You know, they beat them by about, I think, 13, 14 points. That's a great game for them.
Beat Kickotan
so that says
as well.
a lot about their ability. And then we have to go to Gloucester. So it's always harder to beat a team on their home floor. So even though we just beat them the other day, and I've advised them not to go into Tuesday's game expecting that same type of matchup.
All right, and Coach, if you get through Gloucester, you get to the district title, what are you looking for down the road from your team that, in order to carry them where they should be, at least in your mind?
Well, you know, I've told them at this point of the year, we're really just trying to, you know, polish up things that we need to do better. Free throws has been our Achilles. If we would have made our free throws in the Phoebus game, you know, we would have won. I think we missed about 13 free throws, lost by 6. So little things that we're doing that kind of hurt ourselves, we're looking to kind of clean that up. We've advised them that it's, you know, it's one game at a time. Win 2, you go to state. So we're going in, focusing on that first playoff game, trying to get past that one, and seeing how we fare in the second game. just advising them, get plenty of rest, eat well. Now is this time of the year where your hard work really pays off, and you get to see what you're made of. You get to play teams that we haven't seen before, that we haven't played before, which is kind of what I like. So you never know what you're up against. We've been looking at some film on opposing teams from across the water, so we'll see how we do.
And Coach, I have one last question. What was it like for you to come back to your alma mater and try to bring them back to where they should be at the top of the district in your eyes? What was the deciding factor for you to come back home?
That's a great question, and we talk about it all the time. So I really hesitated with coming back and coaching. I coached at Hampton High School with David Six, and it was like family, coaching with Six and coaching girls that I had known when I was in high school. And then I left and, coached college ball for a few years. I came back. I did the JV at Hampton High School. Then I left and I went and coached at the apprentice school. And when the position came open and the boys coach called me, Eric and I are good friends. We went to high school together. He called me, let me know about it. And I was called in for an interview, and when I heard that the girls had won 6 games, I was kind of like, no, and just hearing about, the atmosphere, and I knew that, we would be up for a challenge, but I had some friends who had coached with me before and that I went to high school with who were interested in helping, and that was our biggest challenge. To come in and change mindsets, because when you have kids that are used to coming into practice and practicing however they feel like practicing, missing practice if they feel like it, they don't have rules, they go play games and they're just kind of expecting to lose. That is a hard mentality to change, and we were able to come in. It took a lot of tears, a lot of parent conversations. A lot of kids walking away just because the demand was just so much different than what they were used to. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I love Hampton High School. I love my school. I love the players there. I've told people before, there's not another school in the district that I could never see myself coaching at another school in the Peninsula District ever. They could be a state championship team. If I were asked to take it over, I could guarantee you my answer would be no. The love that I have for Hampton High School is just that great. And it's like family. Coach Eric went there. I went there. You have Coach Smith. You have the track coach. All of us are Hamptonians. So going back and coaching at our school, there's a love for the school, a love for the kids, and a love for the program.
Well, Coach, we can tell how much love you have for the program. Your team's playing great right now, in contention for a championship. We appreciate your time. Frank and I are definitely fans of your coaching style, your teams, and we love to watch you play. Continue success, and we'll catch you down the road, Coach. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Coach. We always enjoy talking to Coach Shanda Bailey. You and I were able to broadcast with LSC just this week, the Hampton Phoebus game, both girls and boys, both games very exciting. And Coach Bailey did a great job, despite the fact of her team's absolute shooting woes in the second half.
Yeah, she had one of her star players that she said Mickey was out sick, was one of her shooters. Just didn't have the night that they typically have. But they still played a great game. And you heard what she said about Diamond Johnson. She seems like she tries to play her best against Hampton. So nevertheless, they're playing for a district championship later on in the week. So they're doing a great job over there.
I wanted to take an opportunity to mention the Diamond Johnson situation. That's the first time that we had seen Diamond Johnson in person in a game, first time we'd broadcast one of her games. She was a terrific player. She does not walk on the court thinking you don't pick her out immediately as being the best player out there, but it's probably the best player in the Commonwealth. Once I've seen her play like I did Tuesday night, that's probably the most athletic young lady I've seen in a long time. And I too wish her well in her new setting. She's going to Newman Goretti, a high school in Philadelphia, and I do hope she does well. I question the timing. I will say that now. I don't know why the parents would allow that to happen. The Phoebus team was relying so heavily on her. They're headed towards the division or region 4, region 3, as Wube holds up the three fingers there, region 3 tournament, and with her loss, they dropped one to Gloucester on this past week.
Yeah, I feel bad for Coach Bell because he was building something at Phoebus, and like he told me, it's a trickle effect because he had young players that wanted to come and play with Diamond Johnson, but now that she's gone, what do these young players do? They start searching around for possibly another school. Again, the timing was a little odd. Getting accepted to a private school. I've never applied for a private school, so I don't know the process. But I'm almost sure that they could have waited maybe a month. But again, I don't know the process and how it works. With 2 regular season games left and the 3A playoffs coming up, you feel bad for Coach Bell. Again, they lost to Gloucester. No disrespect to Gloucester. We have a lot of fans in Gloucester, but it's just very hard for me to see them lose to Gloucester. And the story was Diamondless Phoebus loses to Gloucester. And somebody made a comment that they might not win a game again the rest of the season, which you lose to Gloucester, it's going to be tough. And Tab is coming up, possibly. We talked to Coach Clark, earlier in the broadcast, and that's the game we were looking forward to seeing.
It's one we were lobbying to cover.
Exactly.
We wanted to broadcast that one on television.
Maybe the girls have to have a little time to get adjusted without Diamond. Maybe they will regroup. They still have a couple games left in the regular season before the playoffs start. We'll see, but it's going to be tough for them.
Well, it's kind of like taking the Cavaliers from Cleveland even this past week and taking LeBron off the team.
That's a good analogy.
It's a huge loss. She was the main ball handler for Phoebus, and I think that's really where it's going to hurt her. She was the primary ball handler, and we saw a lot of the young ladies at Phoebus that were able to get off good 3-point shots because Diamond Johnson could get them the pass. And that's going to hurt.
And Coach Bailey did make a good point, with her young body, being double teamed and sometimes triple teamed. It does take a toll on her. I didn't really think about it that way. Going to another school where there are other good players that she doesn't have to rely. They don't have to rely on her as much as the Phoebus team did. She's able to get her own shot, and it won't be a double team, I'm sure. So that does get taken into consideration, but. I'm thinking about it from a Phoebus standpoint and Coach Bell, who was really excited to see what his future could hold there, and now you're kind of looking a little disappointed for them.
Well, we've got a lot of interesting possible mixing up of players coming up, particularly in the city of Hampton with the development of the academy program where athletes can pick and choose to some extent. And so it'll be interesting to see how you lay that on the current system and see what it produces.
Look at a young man, Amir Devon, who transferred from Bethel to Hampton. He had senior night the other day. Again, he transfers with less than 2 weeks left in the season, and he could play immediately. So, like you said, with the academies being implemented last year, now it's interesting to see how these kids can just go wherever they want and play wherever they want. We'll see what happens in the future. It's going to be a sticky situation.
Well, there's going to be a lot of pressure on the coaches to keep their programs up. We'll see it first in football this fall, so we'll take a look there. Well, you can catch the broadcast on YouTube. Hampton City Schools is the name of the YouTube channel. We had Hampton and Phoebus just last Tuesday night, so catch our broadcast there. Anything else going on coming up this week, Wube?
Well,
other than all these games leading to tournaments.
Yeah, all the tournaments are coming up. The regular season will end at the end of this week, and then the tournaments will start up next week. So just looking forward to that. We had some signings for National Signing Day, and Elizabeth City State basically came in and took all our players here on the peninsula. A few kids from Hampton High, Damian Charity, just to name a couple. From Phoebus is going to Old Dominion. Daryl Bryant, Frank, a guy we covered at Phoebus, he's going to JMU, a late signee by the Dukes.
Good.
So
all close enough to go see these players play at the next level.
That's right. So, if you need some more information, obviously go to dailypress.com. Marty O'Brien is now covering him for our girl Kate Yanchulis, is doing a great job. He's covering the Peninsula and the Bay Rivers District. He's doing double duty, so look for him. He's got a lot of great stories, and we'll look to have him on our podcast.
Well,
soon.
It was nice to see him Tuesday night, and we mentioned having him on the podcast. I know he's really busy at the moment. We'll get him later this spring.
For sure.
Well, as we head into this exciting week of the last regular season week in the basketball season, follow along with the Poquoson Bull Islanders. They head out to Salem for the wrestling tournament, And you can catch the Gloucester-Hampton game Tuesday at 5:30, I believe, is when the varsity girls play. Oh, it's at Gloucester. That's right. It's over at Gloucester. So head across the bridge and catch the game up there. I'm sure Shanda Bailey would appreciate having some supporters.
Yeah, when you go to Gloucester, it's a different atmosphere. And then, again, they come back for that district regular season championship against Woodside.
That's going to be quite a matchup. So a lot of great sports ahead. Thanks for being with us. Remember to follow us at Penn Sports Pod on Twitter or at PennSportsPodcast@gmail.com, and follow us on YouTube at that. Thanks so much for all the follows and the shares. We appreciate Randy Begoli, who's doing our production this week, and we'll see you next week.